Okay, here we go. Okay, I think I'm recording now. Is it
Great.
okay, I can always edit part of this out.
Yeah, no, it's all good.
Awesome. Well, okay, so I'll start now. Awesome. Welcome, Leesa. Thank you so much for meeting up with me. And I'm so excited to talk more about you and about your book. And just for everybody watching, my name is Ariane, and I am the head of community over here at Simbi. And here we have Leesa McGregor, and she is one of the authors of one of our most popular books on Simbi, absolutely. And we're so excited to have you here, Leesa.
Oh, thank you, Erin. I'm so happy to be here, and I just love Simbi so much. It's an honor. So very excited.
Great. Fantastic. And I'm really excited to show some of our teachers and our users and our viewers and parents out there and give them a little bit of an insight into you and the process behind the beautiful book, A New Alphabet for Humanity. And I have a couple questions here for you if you're ready to go.
Sure. Absolutely.
Perfect. All right. So I guess to start us off, I mean, you've had other endeavors before this book, I'm sure. And so can you give us a bit of a snapshot of the impactful work that you've done leading up to A New Alphabet for Humanity, and what experiences led you to focusing your impact work on children?
Oh, thank you. Well, it's actually quite a beautiful story because I feel like I've sort of been led to this whole world of education, and it's kind of funny because I don't really consider myself a teacher or an educator, and it's amazing how things kind of came together, and this book, this inspiration just really landed on my lap. So I've always been so passionate about how can we make a meaningful difference to the health and the well-being of people and the planet? And that's really sort of been my guiding question this last 10 years. I've done all kinds of different things. I've mainly worked in business, but I've done things like working in renewable energy. I've run workshops, teaching other entrepreneurs how to build businesses that really make a difference in the world. And so it's always been my passion. It's really, how do you make a meaningful career? How do you develop a meaningful career and build a business that you truly love, and you're doing incredible work in the world like Simbi? And so it's interesting. A few years ago, after having my son, I started to write in my journal, how can I make a difference in education? How can I positively impact my son's generation?
Mhm.
How can I influence his generation? And I really started to think about that. I was like, I believe that we're in this time now of great systems change. And a lot of our old systems are, arguably outdating themselves. If you look at any kind of system we have in the world right now, things are changing. And I got inspired. I thought, this generation, they're asking for something different from us, right? And it was quite profound, actually, because I was at the beach one day with my son, and he looked at me, and it was like his soul was speaking to me or something. And he looked me in the eyes and he said, Mom, it was like he said, what have you got for me? What else have you got for me? And I was one of these, motivated moms that got him early into, the early learning of the alphabet and letters and numbers and colors. And I thought to myself, I was like, wait a minute. It's actually not that early. I could teach him words like compassion and gratitude and empathy, bravery. What do those words mean? And so I wrote down this alphabet list, and I came home and I shared it with my husband. He goes, Leesa, that's amazing. He goes, you've literally rewritten the alphabet. And I shared it with my son, and within a few days, he'd already started to memorize the words, and he wanted to know. And then he would start to say to me, oh, Mom, see how I have compassion? And I was just so amazed to think that this little human had picked up these concepts, right? And I thought, wow, it actually dawned on me. It's never too early to teach our children how to be great human beings.
Mhm.
And so that was really the inspiration behind creating A New Alphabet for Humanity. And as I've sort of dove into the world of education somewhat accidentally, I've realized myself that a lot of moms and moms and teachers, we're all craving this. We're craving a level of education that really brings us back to the heart. Because if we look at somebody like Sir Ken Robinson, who talks a lot about creativity and schools, the education system was designed a century ago. And so we are going through this transition period where we're realizing that our kids are asking more from us. They want more, and so I feel like the social and emotional learning piece is really, really essential for the future of humanity.
Absolutely. Well, that brings us right into my next question here. And myself as a teacher, I noticed a huge shift, and I'm sure every teacher following along with this, with in terms of COVID, things we're feeling like we're catching up. Like our society is moving us into a place that education should already be in, and here we are
Yes.
kind of playing catch up. But it's so true. I mean, in teaching, there's been a huge shift away from just simply studying subject areas, and moving much more towards that whole child education and growing character alongside of skills. And so I'd love to know a little bit more, and you've already touched on it, but maybe what are some more of your thoughts on social emotional learning and the importance of that for our entire generations to come, and even for adults, I guess.
Well, I tell you, one of my greatest inspirations, even for the book, was the Dalai Lama, where he says, an education of the mind without an education of the heart is no education at all. And he's a very big advocate for balancing heart and mind education. And I was so inspired by that. When I learned that, I was reading a few of his articles and seeing some of his videos, and I thought, isn't that true? A lot of us graduated from school, and we may or may not have thought we were smart. We may or may not have thought we were creative. And how do we bring ourselves back to our humanity and our love and appreciation of ourselves and our skills and talents? And so my personal belief is that the social and emotional learning is the most important. And, a lot of parents I speak to, they say, Leesa, all I care about is creating a good human, and it's so fascinating. I think, I've been so blessed with the success of the book, but that's what I hear time and time again from teachers and parents is, Leesa, this is the work of our times. It's creating good humans, it's bringing people back to their hearts. And, I could go even deeper into that, but I feel that we're in this time where we are really healing the story of separation. And what I mean by that is that, so many years ago, we were connected to the land, we were connected to nature, we lived in communities, we lived in villages and tribes, and we were truly connected to our hearts and to each other and to nature. And as we moved through these ages of the scientific age and the industrial age, and we actually had that separation happen, right, where we became disconnected. And we became disconnected from ourselves. We're taught that it's all about getting good grades and so forth, but it's not really about the human. And so there's a deeper meaning, I think, behind this social and emotional learning, which is that we are kind of reacquainting ourselves with who we really are. We're heart-centered humans. We're here to connect with each other. We're here to really be part of serving one another. And then, of course, the nature piece is such an essential part for those of us that are really tuned into the climate conversation. I think that the connection to nature and reinstilling that in our children is also really, really important. So those are really my my feelings, as a parent and an accidental educator now. I just think that this social and emotional piece is really big. So, and I'm excited about how this is taking shape.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I love that. Yeah. Totally with you. I agree with you 100%. It's so important to really be kind of focusing so much more on not just math, not just science, but how do those subjects affect us as humans, and how do we feel towards that in terms of community and each other. I love that.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting too how, you talk about this age of disconnect, and I think on top of, the Industrial Revolution and whatnot, we've got this almost like this technological revolution that's really kind of,
Yes.
in some ways, brought us together, but in other ways really forced us apart. And I think, like, moving on to then my next question here. So Simbi as a reading technology, that our huge part of our mission is to give students a reason to read and a reason to use that technology and open up our minds and start reading through that technology. And that reason being reading for good, or reading to make an impact and positively affect other people who are also reading. So I'm just curious, how do you feel about, providing a why for children, and how do you feel that changes their outlook on how they learn and grow?
Wow, so powerful. Oh, yeah, providing them a why. I think really, it's really, I think for me, and if I think about my son as an example, it's how do we instill a love for learning? How do we instill that? And I feel very blessed. I mean, I think about my mom. She would have like 4 or 5 books on the go at any given time, and I naturally love to learn. I could spend all day like in a classroom learning of something, and I just feel very blessed. That was something that was passed on to me. And I feel like that is a piece that I really am trying to pass on to my son, is how do we instill that love of learning? And what I absolutely love about Simbi is just how it brings people together. I mean, the first time I heard my book narrated by other children, I cried. I was like, this is
Oh,
so amazing. This is so amazing. It's allowing children to step into their own leadership, right? And share with others. And I just feel like that's such a beautiful piece
mhm.
for creating community, global community, right? And that connectivity. So I'm just such a fan for that. And I do believe, just that love of learning. And I think that's the why. It's allowing them to be curious and really be guided by what kind of things they want to learn. I'm very much a fan of the idea of like guiding, like tuning into your child. What is it that they love to learn about? And my son right now is into dinosaurs and space and even mushrooms. Like I'm teaching all about like mycelium and the network of the earth and things like that, right? So nature-based concepts. So anyway, I just really feel that instilling that love of learning and giving them that sense of purpose that they can learn something that they're passionate about is really what I think is works for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that ties in so well with why a new alphabet for humanity is so popular with Cindy. I mean, in terms of like learning something, if you're learning the alphabet, of course, you need to learn your letters in terms of how to spell and how to communicate, but then adding that extra Y behind each letter, I think it's so valuable and so important for these children. So I'm so pleased that it's on Simbi. And again, like I mentioned, it's so popular. And I can't believe you cried the first time you heard somebody else narrating and a
Oh.
child narrating. It is so beautiful.
Well, I did. I've always wanted to make a difference, especially for children all around the world, and I'm very much, I look at the United Nations, their global goals, right? And just this idea of really contributing to the bigger picture of global literacy and how do we provide, I've always really thought about that. It's like, how do we provide access to a quality education for every child on the planet? And so that just absolutely speaks to my heart. And so I'm just so grateful to be part of your mission. And it's beautiful.
I totally agree. And that kind of brings me on to this next question then too. So I guess with that topic of kind of being connected and disconnected as well, in a world of a more distanced or kind of either distanced or mixed or virtual learning, whether that be totally online or maybe a little bit here and there in the classroom and at home, with this new realm of COVID, a lot of students are feeling separated from friends, family, community members, even now. So how do you feel that parents and teachers can encourage children to think about these relationships and empathy for people who are actually outside of their immediate family or community that they're really only interacting with right now?
Oh, it's such a tough one. I mean, I keep coming back to my own strategies, like
Yeah.
what am I doing to help my child right now? I have a 5-year-old. I think, for me, what I find is being out in nature is really important right now. So I try to go to nature spots as much as possible, get them outside. And then just, if we can do outside activities with other kids, that seems to really work. And I like the idea of the hybrid model right now, where we are doing some learning online, we're doing learning at home. I just feel like I think what this is an invitation for us is to really think about how we can do things differently, right? So that we're not always in the classroom, we're not always, running outside, free range without any structure. Yeah, it's such a tricky one. I know for myself, I've been really trying to focus on outdoor activities if I can, outdoor play dates or something like that. But then also I find the Zoom classes are fantastic, having kids together interacting. That's worked really well. I think my son really enjoys that. So I think that kind of connection, I just think it really is inviting us to look at a new way of operating as we move forward that is going to involve all aspects.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's definitely a tough world to be navigating. I mean, it's like you said, part of so much of society has changed so quickly, I think in a way that people weren't, of course, expecting. And
Yeah.
so we're almost playing catch up and trying to make things work in the new reality that was kind of already here in terms of technology and community, right? Awesome, thank you. So I guess like with my next question here, I'm curious, like how, as your book as an incredibly popular resource for parents and teachers alike, what are some practical ways that you've heard from teachers and how they're actually integrating a new Alphabet for Humanity into their classrooms?
Oh, thank you. Well, I've been also blessed. I think because the response from the book was so incredibly positive. I was so inspired. I decided to create an entire heart-based curriculum. So I teamed up with some teachers, and in fact, we're still kind of putting the finishing touches on the whole curriculum. But the way a lot of teachers and educators like using the book right now is obviously they're reading it to the children, but also focusing on a word of the week. So, the word of the week could be abundance. And then that week you're learning about different concepts that relate to abundance. How do we teach abundance? How do we show abundance? So that's been really fun. So we put together a curriculum, both parents and teachers. People can sign up for it for free on our website on alphabetforhumanity.com. So they can have access to that. But basically we provide a word of the week lesson plan. And I think that's really been super valuable. A lot of people have been commenting on how much they love our lesson plans. And also just any ideas. I think it really inspires us to share more examples with our children. Or what does compassion mean? What does empathy mean? And just, whether it's having a kindness jar at home or a gratitude jar, or just really acknowledging those moments where we are having empathy and compassion for one another. I'm just really enjoying that. So yeah, I guess what I'd say is, the lesson plans have been super valuable. Anyone in the community is welcome to access them. And there's just so much learning to be done through this whole
Absolutely. Yeah, well, thank you. That's so exciting. I love that word of the week and getting kids to focus, not just on learning their alphabet, but thinking about, okay, so what does A stand for here? We're going to talk about abundance, and how do we see that not just in this book, but in my life, and making those connections, throughout the school day and even beyond into their life at home too. It's really beautiful. I love that.
Yes. Thank you.
And I guess, I'd love to know too. I'm sure you and your son read your book a lot, but I'm curious to know if you have any other book choices that you believe belong in classrooms across the globe to teach the head and the heart. What are some of your favorites?
Good question.
I put you on the spot.
A lot of inspiration. I love Peter Reynolds' books. His books Say Something, Word Collector. I love Todd Parr. He's got very much like an earth and environmental message. Who have been some of my other inspirations? Gosh, we're bookworms over here, so God, a lot aren't coming to mind right away. But I think I'm very passionate about social and environmental change. So I do tend to gravitate to books around kindness and compassion to people and the planet. And I will say I'm really excited actually, because the next book idea has come to me and we're actively working on it. And it's going to be an alphabet for the earth. And so the whole idea is to teach the concepts of, a nature-based education in a simple book, similar to Alphabet for Humanity. So I thought I'd just share that with you. It's exciting because, of course, we'll look at that for the Simbi platform. But what I wanted was something for teachers that's really easy, that can talk about, all the concepts, biodiversity and climate and, reforestation and concepts like, we know what recycling is. Now we're moving into an era of upcycling, right? So taking older products, making them new. So, just teaching new concepts to children that are really part of the solution, talking about solar panels and wind farms and, just all kinds of exciting things about where we're moving. So that's my next book. I'm very excited about it. So in answer to your question, I very much gravitate to, anything that's very progressive. If it's related to sustainability, teaching children sustainability concepts. Actually, I will say I do love Usborne books. Are you familiar with Usborne?
I'm not actually. Yeah.
Okay. Well, it just popped into my mind, so I have to share it. So they've been my greatest inspiration. They have these books on just about every subject you can imagine, the human body to space to the world. They've got world atlas books. And what's beautiful about them is you can lift the flaps. And I'm sure they have digital versions of the book as well, but that you can lift the flaps and learn different concepts. And they're literally an entire education in each book. And so I highly recommend Usborne. They're called question and answer books. books,
Okay.
or Lift the Flap questions and answers. If you look online, you'll see there's literally dozens of them. They've been our favorite books. My son and I will sit down and read on a particular subject, space, dinosaurs, health, food. There's everything, the human body, really incredible.
Very cool. Well, thanks for those recommendations. We'll have to maybe link to those somewhere as well, so that people can find some of those and do a bit of learning themselves with their little ones at home too. Love that.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And with that kind of introduction to your new book, that's so exciting. And it actually leads me again to my next question here. So thinking, for educators and parents specifically, there's so much going on in the world. And I know for some people right now, it's kind of just about keeping their head above water. And it's so easy to get bogged down kind of by the busyness of every day. And so how do you kind of keep your proverbial North Star focused on impact and positive change? And like, what energizes your inspiration in education? It sounds like you've got that inspiration and energy kind of focused into this new book as well, but is there anything else that kind of keeps you moving forward?
I just think this whole world of education is so amazing. I mean, there's, you think about creating change in the world. This is a piece that we can we can create the greatest change, and that just brings tears to my eyes, because I think, all the problems and arguments we have in the world right now about the political issues and how we're dealing with things and climate, I just think to myself, in 10 years' time, we're going to have a new generation that's going to be in power, and they're going to have very different ideas about how we're going to run the world. And so that brings me a lot of hope and a lot of inspiration and a lot of motivation for continuing to plant these positive seeds so that our future generation does have a positive future. And so, they're going to be the leaders, right? And I always say, if our biosphere could just hold out for a few more years and we get these new people in power, that's it. We don't have to worry anymore. So that's my hope and inspiration. And I as a creative being, I am just so busy and happy and excited about all the things we're creating. I'm just motivated by our community, by Simbi's community. I love just doing what I can to really make a difference. And I'm also very motivated by our other projects. We're doing a lot of reforestation right now. Right. So for every book that we sell, we plant a tree. And so we've been planting several trees. In fact, we just planted another 10,000 trees, which is really exciting. And next year, we're going to start planting fruit orchards for low-income communities and schools, so that they have access to beautiful, fresh food. So I'm just so inspired by that. And that's really a big piece of my motivation. It's of course, the global literacy, but also how do we heal the planet?
Yeah. Wow.
Heal the earth.
That's inspiring just in itself there. I mean, in terms of other people kind of taking inspiration from you or other sources, like that's definitely one to kind of get you going. That's incredible. Yeah. And this is a similar question, I guess, like what kind of, if you're willing to share any kind of tips or tricks or daily practices kind of besides reading impactful stories, that you, what are some kinds of daily practices that you do with your children and your little ones to encourage growth of the heart?
Wow, good question. I mean, I think we're very tuned into following our inspiration and excitement during the day, so whether it's we break into a dance party or we'll do yoga, we try and keep the energy high in the house, and creativity, like bringing out different creative projects. What do we want to learn today? I mean, that's such a good question. I think tying back to the heart, for me, what I try to do with my son is always reinforce when there's a moment of empathy, when there's a moment of compassion, when there's a moment of gratitude. I always reinforce, like the other day, he held the door open for someone and I almost cried. I was like, Max, I said, that's so beautiful that you did that, sweetheart. Like he's 5, he's already picked it up. He's like, yeah, like help people, and at nighttime, he asks me, he goes, okay, Mom, tell me what you're grateful for today. What are you grateful for? Like he's leading the show with these things, right? And that just makes me so teary, because I go, wow, again, these kids are it's never too early for them to learn. So yeah, I think really it's reinforcing when there is a moment of compassion or empathy. I try to celebrate, diversity. It's a big one for us, right? We want our kids to really just embrace humanity. And so I try to talk to my son about differences in children and how wonderful it is, how amazing it is that we're all so different and we can share things with each other. So I try to reinforce, again, just try to live the book, the concepts in the book, but there's just always little teachable moments just through the day, and who we are, how we're showing up as parents, and talking about emotions, right? When we're feeling certain things. So I could probably go on for about an hour on that one. We could talk more, but those are some of my tips. I think gratitude at night is wonderful. And I think just really making a point of pointing out, examples of where people are being great human beings is really registering with these little ones.
Yeah. Wow, that is so incredible. I don't have any kids myself yet, but I mean, in terms of like the little ones that I've taught before and my nieces and nephews, like that's just so hopeful for everybody, to see, picking up that they're picking things up. They're seeing that good. They're seeing that that those feelings from the heart and really taking that and making it their own and living it out themselves. And it agreed. So incredible. Thank you so much for sharing those tips.
You're welcome. And I think just telling them how much you love them 100 times a day, or lots of hugs, like if, in family setting, it's, kids can never get enough love, they love it. So, so I thank you. I appreciate our conversation on that. It's been beautiful.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I'm so grateful that we could do this. And thank you so much for joining me and really sharing a lot of this inspiration and insight. And even though you've confessed you're somewhat new to the world of education, I know you're making huge impacts around the world with this book. And I'd love to thank you for that. And also to your son for really kind of inspiring this and making this, making his world kind of become a world of other children and how they're really impacting, learning through their heart and impacting others around them. So again, just so much gratitude and thanks again for joining us here. And so happy to have you.
Thank you, Erin. It's been wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And so I guess, to kind of close us off here, make sure you check out A New Alphabet for Humanity on Simbi. It's on there. You can read along, you can narrate, and it's a great bedtime story for your kids and for your a great classroom resource as well for teachers. And make sure you check out A New Alphabet for Humanity's website as well. As Leesa mentioned, there's lots of goodies there for parents, teachers, and anyone who's interested in just sharing that joy with their children. And again, thanks Leesa so much, and I hope you have a wonderful day ahead.
Thank you so much. It's been wonderful. Loved our conversation. Thank you.
Me too.